Hello there and welcome to the Card Grotto. Today I'm creating an Eclipse technique look with 3D embossing folders. So let's get started. I've started off by taking a panel of white cardstock. This is 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. And I'm running that through my die cutting machine with the embossing folder that comes with the Altenew Seasonal Blooms Craft Your Life project kit. This is the first project kit that Altenew released and it is so pretty. I absolutely love this embossing folder. So I'm just making sure to line up the cardstock where I want it to be and then run that through my die cutting machine. And then it's always difficult to see white on white embossing on camera, unfortunately, but in real life it's just so pretty. I love all of that design kind of like around the bottom part of the panel. I'm then going to cut a tag from it. This is the Altenew Terrific Tags die set. Now for the purposes of this technique, this could be any shape whatsoever, but because my series with Altenew is Terrific Tags with Michelle, I'm obviously creating a tag for this, but like I said, this could be any shape at all. I did dull some of the embossing when I ran it through my embossing machine, but you definitely could just re-emboss it if you wanted to, but I thought actually it would be quite nice to have that a little bit less embossed than the tag that I'm going to add back inside. So I want to add some ink blending onto the tag. Technically, if you were doing a true Eclipse look, you wouldn't add this on, you would just kind of like have white on white. The Eclipse look is kind of like so things are hidden, but not, if that makes sense, kind of like a solar eclipse, but I'm kind of doing more of like a spotlight eclipse technique, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So I'm adding some Altenew dye inks onto the tag using a small ink blending tool. I really love these smaller ink blending tools. I use them quite a lot for stenciling, but I found with the tags it's quite good to have these smaller ones, and because I'm using a few different colours as well, it's nice to have the smaller ones because you kind of get more in a pack. So I've added yellow at the top with the sun ray, which is from the Golden Sunset collection from Altenew. In the middle I added Rubelite from the Cherry Blossom collection, and at the bottom there I added Midnight Violet from the Shades of Purple collection. And then I'm going in with the Razzleberry to blend the purple and the pink together. And then here I'm going in with Snapdragon to blend the yellow and the pink together, and I think it worked really nicely with kind of like this, I think I kind of feel of it kind of like a sunset colours. I think it turned out really pretty with all of the colours together, a little bit more vibrant than I'm used to, but I really liked it. This is the stamp set that you get in the kit, and this is the die set that I'm going to use for the sentiment. So I'm going to take that Thanks sentiment. I really love this die. It's just so intricate, but it is a little bit more difficult to add on to projects because it is so intricate. But you get the word and also the shadow as well. So I'm going to cut the shadow from Vellum. I thought it would be quite nice to not add too much bulk onto the card because I really want that embossing to show through. So I'm going to cut that from Vellum, and then for the word itself I didn't want to struggle to get loads of kind of small dabs of glue onto the back of it because I want to layer them up. So I'm going to use some Altenew double-sided adhesive sheets. These are my best friend. I absolutely love these. I often add this onto the back of cardstock before I die cut it, and it makes it into a sticker, which is really nice. So I'm going to die cut the thanks word from the white cardstock with the adhesive on the back. So I'm just adhering that down with some low tack tape and running that through my die cutting machine. Whenever I die cut vellum, I always add a piece of printer paper behind. That's just so that I don't get any of the scratch marks from the die cutting plates onto the vellum. I just always have to remember to remove that printer paper because there has been occasions where I have forgotten. And then I ran that die through with the thanks word. I'm being really careful here to try and keep it in the negative because I want to layer another one on top just for some added dimension. It's a little bit easier when they're both in the kind of background kind of cardstock piece or the negative of the die. So I'm just going to kind of cut that out and then run that back through my die cutting machine with the die again. So it's going to be too high. This one actually came out of the negative completely, which is fine. So I'm kind of just using my fingers here just to kind of prise that out. I'm trying to not kind of manipulate it too much. It's so thin that I don't really want to move it, but because I've left that first one in the background, or the negative portion, I can line this up quite easily on top. So I'm just taking my time and the tweezers here just to line those up on one on top of another. And then once I'm happy with that, I can use my bone folder just to really press that adhesive down. And then to remove this, I'm going to try and remove the background rather than the word itself. Although it is a bit more stable now, it is still really very delicate. So just using my tweezers just to help me out there. And then I can push out all of the inside pieces of the letters. And then I'm going to line that up on top of the outline, or the shadow, I should say. So I tend to kind of find one place and stick that down, and then I manipulate all of the letters around it. So again, just taking my time here to really line those up, and then using that bone folder just to really stick those down. And then off camera, I did white heat emboss a sentiment. It's from the Enchanted Iris stamp set from Altenew, and I stamped out So Very Much. I stamped that with embossing ink onto black cardstock and added pure white crisp embossing powder on top, and then cut that into a strip. So the sentiment is going to read, "Thanks so very much." That's my tag. The ink has now dried. In hindsight, I wish that I had done this straight away, but I do want to re-emboss this because the embossing has dulled a little bit because of running it through the die cutting machine in the first place with the tag die, and then also adding the ink on top. It's dulled the embossing slightly, so I'm going to run this back through my die cutting machine with the embossing folder, and it is going to make quite a bit of difference. It did look like I really struggled to get that in place. In real life it wasn't that difficult. It kind of just slots back into place, which is really nice. So now that embossing is a lot more defined, which is really nice, because I want to add some white pigment ink on top, and that's going to enhance that embossing even more. I didn't want to go directly to the tag with the white pigment ink because it's dye ink and then I'm putting white pigment ink on top. I didn't want to contaminate the ink pad, so I'm just smushing some of it down onto a craft sheet and then picking that up with a foam ink blending tool. Ideally I would use a flat foam on the ink blending tool, but at that point in time when I was making this video I didn't have any in my stash. I'd used them all, and so I have ordered some since, but this is why I'm using the domed one. The reason I'd use a flat one is purely just because it's a flatter surface. I really just want to skim the top parts of the tag here, really the most embossed pieces, just to add that ink on top. Because I had let my tag dry, when I re-embossed it I did get a little bit of cracking in the bottom right hand corner. Ironically, if I hadn't have let it dry and ran it through when the tag was still a little bit wet from the ink blending, it wouldn't have cracked. But you live and learn, and next time I will make sure that I do it in a different way. But that pigment ink did cover up a lot of that cracking in the bottom right hand corner anyway. So I did let that sit to dry for a little bit, and now I've got my panel here that I embossed originally, and I'm just going to add some glue tape onto the back of that so that I can add that onto an A2 sized white card base. So this is a finished size of 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. I've added a lot of tape runner onto the back of that piece because it's embossed. I really want to make sure that that's going to stick down well. So I can just line the two up. Once I'm happy, I can press down, and I'm just going to use my bone folder again just to really make sure that that top edge is stuck down. I have then cut another 4 layers of the tag from white cardstock, and I'm going to use these to give dimension to the tag. I could just add that in directly as it is, and I think it still looks really pretty, but I am going to pop it up. So I wasn't sure whether to add the tags in individually. I decided in the end just to kind of pop them all up together and then add it back into the card. At this point it's 3 high and I wasn't sure if I would have that, but I decided to go with another one and make it really dimensional. So that's now 4 high, and then I'm adding that back into the card base and it just kind of slots in place. And then it's going to have the tag on top of that, so in the end it's actually 5 high. So just making sure that that's really well stuck down. And then I've added some twine through the top of the tag. I'm one of those people that thinks that tags look a little bit naked without something through the top, but I think it would still look nice without, but that's just my thing. So I had to add the twine through the top, and then I've added more tape runner onto the back of that tag, and then I'm placing that on top. And then when it goes on top, all of the embossing lines up, and that's the Eclipse look, and I just think it's so pretty. And it's kind of, as I say, like spotlight as well, because I've got that ink blending. The tag really kind of pops out, and then you see the background that it all kind of connects, which I do think is really pretty. So I'm just adding some small dabs of glue onto the back of that thanks word, and then I can place that down. And I apologise for my head getting in the way here, but I wanted to make sure that I added that on straight. And then I can add some foam tape onto the back of the sentiment panel here, or strip I should say. I've just added an acrylic block onto that thanks word just to hold that down while the glue dries. I can remove the backings off of that foam tape, and then I can place that down underneath the thanks word. And that's the card finished for today. I really love the look of the Eclipse technique with embossing folders. I'd never tried it before. I've done it lots of times with stamping and die cutting, but never with embossing folders. I'm definitely going to try it again. I really love the look. Links to the products that I used will be in the description bar on YouTube and also over on my blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.